Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for a literary update for you. Talk about what I'm currently reading. So, first, I did finish At the End of the Watch in the beginning of the month. It's pretty cool. But with space, science fiction, I feel like sometimes I would rather just watch a movie or a TV show like that. Like, I think I probably would have enjoyed the Expanse series more than the books. I did attempt the books, but I kind of got bored with them when I started reading the first not with the whole series because I've only started reading the first book. And the end of the watch, it was kind of cool, the premise and everything. But it was hard for me to follow along and to picture what was going on in the story because, like, I just don't understand some of the science, the terminology, and all the battles and all that stuff. There was just a little. I mean, I didn't think it was I still thought it was entertaining. Still kind of enjoyed it. I didn't even consider keeping it, but I did put it on my donation pile as a book. A series, because it's gonna be a series I think I put it aside for now to come back to. Maybe I might continue with it. Like, I want to start a pile of books that I'm still not sure. They're kind of in limbo where it's like I might get rid of them and donate them, or I might not, and I might give it another shot and keep going with it. I also finished Hadrian and the Triumph of Rome as well, my nonfiction of the month. I'm still trying to get into the whole habit of having a nonfiction each month, but it's kind of hard because sometimes nonfiction can be a little tedious. And you got to find the right nonfiction book and subject matter to get you into it. Obviously, because I mean, there are probably people that will read any nonfiction book. I mean, I know like there's people like Olive from Book Olive, who's a huge fan of nonfiction, and there's a lot of subjects that are written about that she's interested in. I mean, I don't know if she would read any nonfiction book, probably not, but I know there's a lot more subjects that people have written about that she's more interested than with me. But it was really fun to learn about one of the emperors that I didn't know a lot about. Like, I was familiar with the name, but I barely knew anything about him and what he did and the good and the bad that he did for Rome. So it was really cool, and I'll talk more about it at the end of the quarter. So I read that, and I decided to start. Decided to start these 3 books here. First, I wanted to read another sci-fi book because I want to continue to keep trying in science fiction, and I don't want it to be in a situation where like I'll read science fiction, I enjoy it, and then I take months, like 6 months to a year before I pick up my next sci-fi. Because since it's a genre I don't read regularly, so it might take a while for me to get into it because it's not my first inspired genre to pick up. So I did start, and this was also a thrift books purchase, and I did cave the other day and buy some books. Now, I didn't buy the Tolkien books. I bought some cheaper books and took advantage, and they were sequels to books that I already had. I figured, why don't I just take advantage of the free book situation for now, and I'll come back to the Tolkien books another time, and maybe I'll get them for Christmas or from someone else. But I figured I should also go through some of my thrift book purchases. Now, there are some books that I took off the little thrift books price tag, that I took off. So there are some books that I don't remember if they're thrift books purchases or not. But I figured I should start reading some of those. And this is also sci-fi. So I started reading The Best of All Possible Worlds by Karen Lord, and I'm already kind of confused what's going on, so I can't really talk a lot about it. It does sound intriguing, and I'm curious. I want to keep going, and it's not a long book, so but it does come off as a little slow, but I'm definitely curious about what is going on, and I want to figure it out, so I'm going to keep reading it, even though I'm already kind of confused. And it could also partly because I picked it up and I started reading it a few weeks ago and then put it down and then picked it up again a couple days ago. And so it's like I don't remember like the first chapter or prologue or whatever, what happened there. But I know there's a little bit of romance in this, and there's also the sense of like this culture matches people up. The aliens are more into the matching people up with the person that is most compatible, and they don't consider the emotional. Emotionalness doesn't come into play. The emotional, like people, not just compatibility, but emotional compatibility. Not just like, oh, we have similar interests, or this character looks similar, reminds me of, my, like there's one character in the beginning that, this guy matches up. He's friends with our main character, and he decides to match up this really famous alien scientist with another one because who had just lost his wife, and they're like, and the main character's friend says this woman reminds him of his wife, so let's match them up because they're so similar, and they do kind of bond. And it seems like the female alien does fall in love with the guy, does start, or at least really likes him. But it's kind of, as someone that's, is a human and not an alien and lives in today's world, it's a little weird. I'm thinking, is this gonna work out? That's kind of weird because they're focusing more on the practical and sensible things, and like they're not thinking about what other like emotions always get involved in relationships. No matter what even if someone is compatible, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna fall in love and stuff. So it's an interesting thing to think about. Like I said, I want to keep going. It's just, like I said, I'm still trying to figure it all out and what's going on and stuff. And so there's that, the best of all possible worlds. I haven't got very far, so before I talk about the one I'm most focused, I did start my reread of can you guys see the title? Oh, the light is kind of, let me turn it this angle. Nope, still can't see it. I took off the dust jacket, but it's The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King, which is the book that I think was inspired by his daughter, because he wanted to write something that she could get into. And it's kind of a fairy tale story, and also gives a backstory to Randall Flagg, who's the villain, is the antagonist in The Stand. And I think he's brought up in other book, he's in The Dark Tower as the Man in Black. And I think he's someone that's a throughway throughout the story, throughout Stephen King's universe. So in this, it's kind of a medieval type setting, and you have our kingdom, and the king is Roland, which there's this whole thing about, is this connected to, is he an ancestor to Roland from the Dark Tower series? Because they have a similar name. And so King Roland, he has a magician who's Flagg, and Flagg tells him, you gotta get married so you can have an heir and everything. So he arranges for these women to, who are very passive and submissive, and they won't ruin Flagg's plans. So he ends up picking this woman named Sasha, who they think, oh, she's perfect, she's submissive, she's quiet. And she ends up giving King Roland 2 sons, Peter and Thomas. And she dies giving birth to Thomas. And she actually ends up being not as submissive as they hope. She ends up actually being a threat to Flagg and his plans and stuff. And she even kind of like influences her, and she has a very strong influence over Peter and makes sure she's part of his life instead of just having, servants and governesses, will take care of him and teach him things. She is very much made sure that she had an influence on his life. Like there's this whole thing about a moment, the one thing that he does remember, because he does not remember a lot, because he was like only like 5, I think, when she died, giving birth to his brother, but the one thing he does remember is this moment when she tells him he should be using a napkin. And he points out, oh, Flag and my dad and all the other nobles, they don't use napkins. They just, wipe their hands, which is gross. And she's like, yes, because unfortunately the king can get away with whatever he wants. No one's going to correct the king. No one is going to correct Flag. But you're young enough that I can influence you. I mean, she doesn't say that, but, she's like, but no, I want you to have manners and be better than that. And she does this whole talk about God and, God's influence on you and everything. And it's an interesting scene. Although I think I remember other people bringing up and finding the scene a little, people had opinions on that scene. I have to look up the reviews because I think that was one of the moments people have opinions on. And then a lot of people think this is really a long, tedious read. And I think but the problem is that's just Stephen King. His books are very long and can at times seem tedious because there's just parts that are slower, and he spends times on details that other people might think is a waste or unnecessary. So I don't know. But I wanted to give this another shot because, I feel like I have a bad habit of, it's one thing when I'm buying a book, I'm trying to decide if I want to buy a book or not at the roast office. It's like, I need to, if I pick more than one and I want to limit myself to how many books I buy, looking at reviews and actually reading the reviews does help. And I don't always have time to read every single book that, I'm interested in, but reviews make me question that interest. I don't have the space, I don't have the time to read every single book. People will say, oh, you should, I feel like some people would tell me, oh, don't let them make your own decision, so you should read the book before you decide how you feel about it. It's but you don't have time to read every single book that you're curious about. And unfortunately my library, which by the way, I'm thinking, I might go to the library today. I am thinking about it. The problem is it's one of those days where it's kind of rainy. And it's going to be rainy on and off. I mean, I did look at the weather and it might not start thunderstorming until 3. So if I go soon, maybe after I'm done filming this, then maybe I might be okay. Because I know my dad might be going somewhere. I'm going golfing or something. But, and I'll have to walk home. But anyway, and I don't want to stay there all day, but I am thinking about it. I don't know yet though. But anyway, back to talking about this. So far this is really good. I don't think I got as far as I did the last time I attempted to read this. So we've met Peter, the oldest boy. We haven't met Thomas yet. I can't remember which one of them, because one of them becomes the antagonist. I don't know if it's Thomas or Peter, but I don't remember. I have to look at the reviews. The description, not the reviews. The description of what this book is, what happens in the book. I remember when I first got this book, I saw it had a library stamp on it, and it had that plastic on it that library books have. And I just realized, I was thinking, oh, my dad stole a library book. And it's no, he probably bought it. It was probably at a library sale. Which is surprising, but I guess, at the time, maybe he was intrigued by Stephen King or someone else in his life like Stephen King. It's very much a surprise, but I do this, which is funny, because I already had a connection to Stephen King, because my dad already had a Stephen King book before I even got into him. Which is really funny. But yeah, so I like this Naked Hardback does have this on it. It's small and it's all the way down the bottom, but at least it has something on there. You know how I feel about Naked Hardbacks, and if they don't have anything on them that you can't see. It has to be something you can at least see, because I know that sometimes they'll put something on the cover, but then you can't see it because it blends into the color of the Naked Hardback. But yeah, so I'm reading this one. I did start reading this. And then last but not least, the one I could talk about the most about is The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. So, as you guys know, I've been trying to read the Shakespeare plays that you don't hear a lot about. You hear about Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. And then I read Julius Caesar in my sophomore year, which I do plan to reread that one. And Othello you hear about in the Scottish play. There's a lot of, and I know that, I've heard about the Richard plays, about King Richard and all that, the history plays. So I want to read something that I don't hear a lot about. And this was one of the ones I was at that was this size at the roast office. Because he had, a couple of other ones, like Romeo and Juliet was there as well, I think. But it was in the mass market format. But what's nice about these editions, and then the Barnes & Noble edition of King Lear, is it has notes explaining the language and what was going on with Shakespeare in his life and everything. I didn't read all of it. I attempted to, but unfortunately, it happened during the time I started reading when I was getting ready to go to bed, so I was falling asleep. And I also even had one of those moments where, like, I'm half awake, half asleep. And then I think I'm still reading the book. Like, I partially dream that I'm still reading it. You know that I'm so tired when it gets to that point where I dream that I'm reading it still. And I forgot that I put it down already. Because I knew I was falling asleep. It's happened to me a few times. I don't know why. I mean, maybe because I read so much. But anyway, so I'm really liking this. I'm curious why people don't talk about this one. Is it because they find it boring? Is it because there is a Jewish character that's kind of antagonist, Shylock, and maybe people find that offensive? I don't know. I really want to know what people, maybe, like I said, maybe people just find it boring. I don't know. But, I like it personally. I think it's very interesting. Except for the character that's supposed to be funny, because I still don't understand. I'm still kind of trying to understand the language and what the malapropism. I don't know if I'm saying it right, where you say a word and you say it incorrectly on purpose or something like that. I don't know. You guys, let me see if I can find. There's a definition. Okay. Modern language. No, that's the specific words. I'm trying to think where it talks about. Oh, maybe it's here, wordplay section. Okay, malapropism. Okay, in the play's more comic scenes, one finds instead of puns words that are today called malapropism, i.e., words grotesquely misused. So yeah, that's the character of Lancet does that. Lancet Gobbo. They grotesquely misuse words, I guess. Although I guess it's really not that hard to understand. I'm still learning to understand Shakespeare's language and how he writes and everything. But anyway, so but this is still really intriguing. It's about this guy, I guess he's a merchant, as the title suggests. And he, Bassanio, and sorry, forgive me if I'm butchering the name. He wants to marry this woman, this heiress Portia, but the only way to marry her is like her suitors are presented with 3 caskets. One of them is gold, one of them is silver, one of them is lead, and one of them holds her picture in it. And if you pick the right one, then you get to marry her. But if you don't get to marry anyone. That's basically it. If you pick the wrong one, not only do you not get to marry her, but you don't get to marry anyone. They can't propose marriage to anyone if they get it wrong, which I think is messed up. And so she has Bassino as one of her suitors, and then you have this Moroccan prince and another guy. I don't know if I can't remember if he's also a prince or not. That they want to, and then you also have the subplot of Bassanio's friend Antonio owes a lot of money, and so he has to take out a loan from a bank. He has to take out a loan and so Bassanio and Antonio go to this money lender, Shylock, who's a Jew, and they are Christian. So there's already tension between them because, you know, there's this tension and distrust between the Christians and this prejudice between the Christians and the Jews. Like they think really badly of each other and just don't and there's a lot of hatred towards Jews and a lot of unfair prejudice in these false assumptions about them. And so Shylock, he still wants to he's still doing his job, but he also does not trust Antonio. And Antonio also is in love with Shylock's daughter Jessica. And they decide to run away and elope. And Shylock is pretty pissed about that. And this is pretty much a story about marriage, love and marriage, but there's also, they explore the tensions between the Jews and the Christians with the character of Shylock. And, so far, like I said, I really like it. I think it's a really good play. I don't get why people don't like it, but maybe, or at least they don't talk about it as much. And maybe they just, like I said, maybe they find it boring. You know, there's definitely gotta be some kind of reason why people don't talk about this one as much. And so I just realized though, like, not just now, but last night I was just thinking about this, and yesterday, and I remembered that there's an episode of Buffy, where they are talking about the Merchant of Venice. Like, it's the second to the last episode of season 1. And I think it's second to last. And, you know, there's a girl who turned the main antagonist is this girl who was, you know, people forgot about and ignored her. So she eventually turns invisible and decides to get payback and get revenge on the people that treated her badly and ignored her, including one of them being Cordelia. And so we're having a flashback of before Marcy, this girl, turned invisible, and there's a classroom scene where they're talking about the Merchant of Venice. And they didn't say the play itself, but they referred to a quote that I immediately recognized. Let me see if I can find the quote. Okay, this is a line from Shylock. And, let me see if I can remember what's going on in this scene. I think this is after Antonio and his daughter and Jessica have run away. And the morning after, and Shylock is interrogating Antonio's friends, Salarino and Solanio. Again, forgive me if I don't say those names right. And he's kind of like venting about how the prejudice he receives from these people and how this evil Christian took his daughter, which I think is the one redeeming quality is one of his redeeming qualities is he does love his daughter. And it's kind of, I don't blame him for being a little, not just pissed off about this guy stealing his daughter, but also how he's treated as a Jewish man. So this isn't the whole thing, but this is the last part. If you pick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? If you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge? If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should be his suffering? What should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why revenge? The villainy you teach me I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. So I think basically that's saying that I'm not different from you. Yes, I have different beliefs than you, but I still feel the same things you do, and that I have a right to want revenge. And it's not fair that if a Christian gets away with this, can do this, but I'm not allowed to because I'm Jewish. So yeah, that was the line I recognized in that episode of Buffy that they talked when they were talking about the play. And of course, Cordelia just thinks the guy's being whiny. But and there was actually another line here that was another reference that was making in actually Charlie and the Chocolate Factory of all places. It's a line that Bassanio says about fancy bread. And that's something that that Willy Wonka says when he's kind of being thoughtful, and the other people are the people that are taking the tour, the parents are, and the kids are just like, huh? Like, what, you're being weird. And I think he's just thinking about stuff. And I'm sure if you understand the context of the line that Bassanio says, you probably can understand why he said that. He wasn't just him being weird. But there's a reason. I would have to go back though and think about the line. And probably which is nice that these editions have have this section where it kind of defines what some of the words and stuff and the differences and everything. So I would have to find that line, the fancy bread one. Let me see if I can find it. There's gotta be another. Yeah. Okay, there's gotta be another. Yeah, I can't see it. I should have folded that page over. But, yeah. So, like I said, I really like this. I think it's really intriguing and interesting, and it's kind of fun, but also can be very serious too, because with Shylock's character, it's not silly and rom-com, Much Ado About Nothing, which has more of A Midsummer's Night's Dream. Those ones I feel like have a more serious, silly rom-com feel to them. Maybe have some serious moments, of course, but while this one has more deeper meaning, deeper things, especially the whole tension between Shylock and Antonio. Because it's more than just he doesn't like the guy, doesn't like this guy with his daughter. It's more than that. It's also the fact that prejudice against him because they have different religious beliefs, and Shylock experiences as a Jewish man experiences a lot of prejudice and hate towards him because there are these beliefs about Jewish people that are very inaccurate and unfair judgments on them. But yeah, I should look up and see what the people thought about Merchant of Venice and see why people don't talk about this one. I mean, hopefully it's just because it's boring, to them. I don't know, but so that's what's going on. It looks like the sun is kind of seeping through, and also I do need to, because it was raining this morning, maybe I should walk up to the library so I can get some exercise in. But I don't know yet. I'll have to, if my dad hasn't left, I'll ask, because his phone has radar, so he knows when the rain, his phone is more accurate determining when rain is coming. So I'll probably check with him and see if what the deal is with the rain and when it will start again, when the thunderstorms are starting. Which so far looks like it's only 3. It's at 3. But anyway, the other thing is my hesitancy of going to the library is because I'm feeling like, and I talked about this before, that when I go to the library, I feel like I neglect my personal books because I'm prioritizing the library books and I want to get them read before, so I can eventually return the library book sooner rather than later, and I don't have to keep renewing it. So we'll see. I do have like I said, I've ordered some books off Thrift Books, so I'll do probably a little tiny book haul, or maybe I'll use that to update you guys, because it will take like a week or 2 before the books come. So I will talk to you guys later. I hope you're enjoying reading, and if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already and are interested in watching more of my videos. And if you want to know when I'm uploading, then you can click the bell icon. And I hope you're enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!